Today's faction focus is on the Genestealer Cults, and there are some changes. So, let's take a look. First, some context. The article establishes that every GSC infantry unit has the Deep Strike ability. Thank you, Warhammer Community, for placing crucial context where it is most imperative. The GSC's army rule is Cult Ambush, and I think most people would agree Cult Ambush and what it represents is the most suitable choice for the GSC's army rule. Cult Ambush has changed considerably though. It's no longer a tool used to win deployment. Instead, it now serves as a way to regenerate units, which certainly adds to the overwhelming cult vibe. Plus, it has an interesting twist. It's a beefy block of text, so let's parse it out. When a Cult Ambush unit is destroyed, you roll a d6, and on a 4+, that unit is returned to Cult Ambush, and you can place one of your Cult Ambush markers anywhere on the battlefield, more than 9 inches horizontally away from enemy units. And when rolling for battle line units, you can add 3 to the result. The text notes that enemy units, which come within 9 inches of a Cult Ambush marker, cause that ambush marker to be removed from the battlefield. Ambush markers are then activated at the end of your enemy's next reinforcement step, allowing you to select a unit in Cult Ambush and set it up on the battlefield with all of its models at full wounds, using Deep Strike, so long as at least one model is touching the ambush marker. And we have a note that stipulates that characters which were attached to a unit are not returned during the Cult Ambush. Their detachment rule is they came from below, allowing a unit which is set up on the battlefield as reinforcements to gain sustained hits 1 and ignores cover on their weapons until the end of your next fight phase. There are a few interesting elements about this system. Yes, initially, Cult Ambush seems like a crazy amount of value, enabling battle line units to only be properly destroyed 16% of the time. Though note, Cult Ambush units arrive in your opponent's next reinforcement step. So if that Cult Ambush unit was removed in your opponent's shooting or fight phase, there is a gap in time between when it's removed and when it returns, and then becomes usable again. It also leaves your opponent room to move within 9 inches of the ambush markers to turn them off, preventing you from regaining those free units. But if a Cult Ambush unit was destroyed in your fight phase, then it would be returning before your opponent has had another turn to destroy other units. Either way, they arrive in time for your opponent's shooting and fight phase before being able to be used by you, though the sheer utility to bring units back with such reliability is the value up for grabs here. And the wording of "they came from below" provides a potent bonus to all of your units attacking, regardless of when they came in, which is good to see it's been accounted for in the written rules. The only problem that jumps out to me is having to resolve Cult Ambush rolling and placing of markers after each ambushable unit is destroyed may tend to slow down the pace of the game. We then get an army structure rule for Brood Brothers, outlining the points limits you can field of GSC-aligned Astra Militarum, along with noting they cannot be given enhancements or be your warlord, and specifying a list of keywords identifying the Imperial Guard units which are not applicable for Brood Brothers. On the datasheet front, we got a win. An emblematic battle line unit, the Neophyte Hybrids, are on display. Their stat line is right where it's expected to be, and we can see they kept quite a lot of their unique war gear compared to other units, which I found to be surprising, as I figured we'd end up seeing heavy mining weapons and the like. But the weapons themselves seem fairly in line to me based on the other T3 Ballistic Skill 4 units we've seen. On the ability front, Neophyte Hybrids have a plan Generations in the Making, which allows the Neophyte Hybrids to provide some command point generation utility, if they control objectives in your command phase. And their war gear ability, Cult Icon, allows a unit to regain D3 lost models in your reinforcement step, or regain D3+3 lost models if on an objective. We also get a big cheese on display, the GSC's Patriarch, and the Patriarch feels fairly modest, which is suitable for a scrubby army like the Genestealer Cults. On the weapon front, rather unexpectedly, there is an absence of a ranged Witchfire psychic power. Its melee weapons, Patriarch's Claws, provide 5 attacks hitting on 2s at strength 6, but has devastating wounds which are also rerollable thanks to Twin Linked, which deal 2 damage with -2 AP. On the abilities front, we can see that Patriarch has Infiltrators and quite a few unique abilities. Might from Beyond returns as an ability, allowing a unit he leads to gain devastating wounds on their melee weapons, which I presume would be quite effective on pure strain Genestealers and Aberrants, presuming it can lead them. Cosmic Horror is a psychic ability, which forces every enemy unit within 6 inches of this model at the start of the fight phase to take a Battle Shock test. This can be ultra impactful. In addition to failed Battle Shock causing a unit on an objective to no longer hold it, this has the added ability to turn off a unit's access to stratagems which would tilt the combat to their favor, such as certain fight-on-death stratagems we've seen. And its Psychic Familiar can be used once per battle to double the range of the Cosmic Horror ability. On weapon spotlights, we can see the Reductus Saboteur's demolition charges are being used to share the one-shot weapon ability, which unsurprisingly means that weapon can only be fired once. Pertaining to the demo charge, while the strength and AP have been tweaked to fall in line with 10th edition standards, the attacks have received a nice bump from D6 to D6 plus 3, and the weapon is now Assault. So, this wild lady can now rush in and bomb the crap out of a squad of Marines, which is pretty cool. And remote explosives have had their stats pulled way down, but have gained a more consistent number of attacks, and also maintained its ability to indirect fire, nicely simulating traps being peppered around the battlefield. We also get a look at the power Sledgehammer on the Abominant. 3 Strength 12 attacks at AP 2 dealing D6 plus 1 damage, and with Weapon Skill 3+, it allows Monster Mash here to take on vehicles with a fair amount of efficiency. On the Stratagem spotlight we got 2. Coordinated Trap is our stand-in for the GSC's Lost Crossfire system. For 2 command points, it allows 2 units which haven't yet fired in your shooting phase to add 1 to their wound rolls if they make their attacks into the same single target. While losing Crossfire as a gameplay system is a mechanical loss, I like the practical of this much more, as now you aren't creating situations where your units would end up crossfiring into each other. And we got Tunnel Crawlers, which allows a unit to be set up from deep strike 6 inches closer than normal, which is obviously a great exception to have, as it grants you more control in where your dudes arrive, though like with the previous iteration of this rule, the target of the stratagem cannot charge in the same turn. And lastly, at the bottom of the article it notes some abilities possessed by the GSC characters, that the Locust character will give the unit it leads fights first, and the Biophagus will give the unit it leads lethal hits. And that's it for this one. Regarding the preview itself, I think it was one of the better ones. Army and detachment rules and supplemental context were presented to illustrate the design style of play. And we got baseline troops and a big cheese creating a floor and ceiling of performance. I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10, but when it comes to the rules themselves, and the standards and perceptions of the Genestealer Cult player base, I am admittedly unfamiliar. So I want to hear from you. What did you think on this faction focus?